they've had some up and down years, particularly with football. They had Lamar Jackson, the Heisman Trophy winner, and national success. But since then, they've lost their coach, Scott Satterfield, um, to Cincinnati, and they're looking to rebuild the program with alumnus Jeff Brom, who had a really good career at Purdue, got them to the Big Ten title game last year, and looking to just continue that success in the ACC. So let's get into departures. As I said, Scott Satterfield, your head coach, he's gone from Louisville, just across the border into Ohio at the University of Cincinnati. He's gone. Malik Cunningham, the replacement for Lamar Jackson, was also a mobile dual threat type of quarterback. He was really good at Louisville. Wasn't able to get the Cardinals to the same national recognition, but he was solid. And then Monty Montgomery, he was a linebacker. He was really good for your defense. As you see the clips rolling here, was able to help you beat Wake Forest with that 6 turnover third quarter. Just absolutely insane takeaway ability against Wake Forest in that game. But Malik Cunningham is going to be interesting to replace. I think, I've said in previous videos that Louisville doesn't really have a quarterback for the system that Scott Satterfield had in place with his players. You bring in, as I said, Jeff Brom as a head coach from Purdue, and he also brings with him Brady Allen, his quarterback. But Brady Allen is more of a pocket passer than the dual threat style that Cunningham was. And that team, that offensive line, and those receivers are built for that sort of mobility with the quarterback, that sort of run and shoot. And then the offensive line has been adjusted to be able to run block more than just purely pass block because of Cunningham's scramble ability. But I think Brady Allen will be a decent quarterback in this first year, and the system will change to the one that Jeff Brom wants over the years. And Marcus Washington, very good cornerback coming in through the transfer portal. Louisville, I think, has sort of an underrated secondary, not one of the top 3 or maybe even 5, but definitely a quality secondary that can lock up a receiving core. But with that, let's go to strengths. Obviously, your quarterback experience is going to help you, and your starting cornerback, definitely your strengths, and your head coach. Your head coach is a very quality one. He can get the most out of his talent, and we saw that at Purdue, and we know that his recruiting is pretty good because of the stars that he was able to get to play with him at Purdue, particularly Rondell Moore. He was amazing. Weaknesses, offensive line and defensive line. Offensive line, as I said, I think they're just used to that Satterfield system, and it's going to take a while for them to shift over to what Brom expects from them with a pure pocket passer behind them that they need to protect. I think their run blocking will still be good. And then defensive line, Louisville has kind of always been a little undersized when it comes to defensive linemen. They mainly relied on their secondary and their linebackers, which is fine, but I think Brom will be wanting to turn that around. He's used to the Big Ten style defenses with big size defensive linemen. But let's go ahead and get into the schedule. First, I'd like to say that Louisville's permanent opponents are Georgia Tech, Miami, and Virginia, which is a little odd, particularly with Georgia Tech and Miami. Louisville is one of these teams that they joined the conference and they don't really have a history with any of the teams. Even now, I know that Lamar Jackson had that wonderful showdown with Clemson, but Clemson couldn't add them as a permanent opponent just because of the rivalries that they already have with Florida State, Georgia Tech, and NC State. So Louisville kind of looking for some history to develop in terms of a rivalry between some of these teams, and just really hasn't happened. But who knows? Something will come along that gets the fire of rivalry going. But you start off against one of your permanent opponents, Georgia Tech, in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Again, not sure why this is being played in Mercedes-Benz Stadium rather than Bobby Dodd Stadium, which is Georgia Tech's actual stadium. If you watch the Georgia Tech video, you know what I think about this game. I think that Brent Key, since he has that head start with those interim games that he had last year, he has a full offseason of recruiting and camps. He will have his team ready for this game. They're at home. Louisville, you're traveling to Atlanta. I think there's a bit of excitement around the Georgia Tech football program right now, and Louisville football program. But Georgia Tech, I think, gets the win, and you lose the opening game, mainly due to Haynes King's throwing ability. He'll have a fire lit in him to prove that he should be a Power 5 quarterback because of his time at Texas A&M, which was turbulent to say the least. And Brady Allen, he's already proven that he belongs on the stage with what he was able to do at Purdue. But yes, a loss mainly because of the offense and the different structures and where they're at this point with changing head coaches. Next, you play Murray State at home. That should be a win. I think Jeff Brom, the level of head coach that he is, he's way too experienced at this level to be losing to someone like Murray State, particularly at home. And then you play Indiana. I think this is also a win, particularly because you're at home. Indiana, they were hyped up so much in 2020 with Michael Penix Jr., and they did have a really good year, but after he transferred away, he was the engine to that offense, and since then they haven't really been able to do anything. So Indiana needs another quarterback like Michael Penix Jr., and I don't know if that's going to come along for them. Just because it's Indiana, it's really hard to win in that division of the Big Ten. You have Michigan State, Ohio State, Penn State. That alone is enough to sink a program, or at least keep it down in the basement. But you also have Maryland, who's a pretty good team. Rutgers I would say, is at Indiana's level. So really hard to find wins there at Indiana. Then you stay home against Boston College. You have 3 home games in a row. Boston College, I think, is going to be a lot better this year than people think. They went 3-9 last year. I talked about this in the Boston College video with how they are looking to get to a bowl game and win with Jeff Hafley. And I think Jeff Hafley gets another upset win here on the road. Boston College will have the defensive line to really tear up that offensive line that's not used to having just a pure pocket passer. And I think that's what really kills you in this game. And Boston College's running game will be better, and their offense will be better. And I think particularly their running game is going to take a leap because last year they were hardly able to run the ball at all. And so that's going to be the target of their improvement. And with your defensive line and how undersized it is, I think this is one of the games where you really see that. Then next, you go on the road at NC State. This is a tough game because although the winning home win streak for NC State ended last year at the end of the year against Boston College, they're still a really good home team. It's hard to play in Carter Finley. One of the toughest places to play at in the conference, Memorial Stadium, certainly up there. Doak Campbell up there is a hard place to play. But you get to play at Carter Finley Stadium, and I think you take a loss. NC State's defense is one of the best in the country. Tony Gibson is coming back. They still have Peyton Wilson to head the linebackers, and the linebackers I know have gotten a lot of experience with the injuries that the linebacking core went through these past 2 years, so it's not like an inexperienced guy is coming up. Everyone's gotten playing time in that group. Their defensive line is fairly average, but their cornerbacks are really good. The offense at NC State looks like it's going to be worlds better than it was last year. They bring in Robert Vinay, who brings the air raid with a transfer quarterback, Brennan Armstrong. Very dangerous offense there. So a loss to NC State. Then you come home and you play the Fighting Irish. I think this is a loss as well. I think Notre Dame is going to beat down on all these ACC opponents until they face Clemson in the second half of the year. So Notre Dame continues their ACC winning streak. And then you go to Pitt. So in a 3-game stretch, you face at NC State, home against Notre Dame, and then at Pitt. And this is a tough 3 games. Phil Dracovic at Pitt, that defensive line group that Pat Narduzzi has assembled, very experienced, very good. Their blitz packages are very complex, almost NFL-like. I think this is another loss. I think you take 3 losses in this 3-game stretch. And then you head into the bye week to prepare for Duke. But, Duke, again, they're just really far ahead of you when it comes to offensive scheme and defense. I think you take a loss to Duke. Duke's defensive line is also really impressive. It's not like a Clemson, but it's definitely got its capabilities. And their secondary is pretty good. Riley Leonard can really tear up a defense, either with his legs or with his arm. So I think that gives you a whole lot of trouble. And you take the loss to the Blue Devils. That marks 5 losses in a row for the Louisville Cardinals. A tough year already for Jeff Brom. But then you face Virginia Tech. And I think you get a win. They're in a rebuilding phase. They're trying to get back to the Frank Beamer era of success. And I think it's going to take a while. They don't really have anything that points to them being really good this year in terms of recruiting. But I think they're going for a more development style program. Just fine. But it takes time to develop, so with that, Virginia Tech, you get a win against the Hokies. And then you face Virginia. As I've said, my heart goes out to the Virginia football program for what happened last year near the end of the year. It's something that no group should have to go through. But in regards to football, I think you get the win. Virginia is also in that development project. And as I said in a previous video, I don't think it's a 5-year project or even a 7-year project. I think it's a 9-year project. And I think someone like Tony Elliott can get that done there in Charlottesville. But it's going to take a while, and it's going to take a lot of patience from the Virginia faithful. And this would be year 2 of that 9-year project. So very early in the stages. I think Virginia will see some success in the middle of Tony Elliott's project, but around the 9-year mark will be when you really start to see them develop into a team that can compete for the ACC championship. So that's what I think about Virginia in your game against them. You get a win. Then you go at Miami. Tyler Van Dyke comes back. Always have to go on the road, even at Miami, where not a lot of people show up for their games. I think you lose here. Miami really looking to improve upon last year. Mario Cristobal, his second year there in South Florida. I think he does improve the team, particularly in their deep ball coverage, because that's what killed them a lot, especially against Middle Tennessee State. A lot of pride lost in last year's defeats, particularly to Florida State. Miami will come back with a vengeance this year and beat some teams that they're maybe not supposed to beat, or at least you would expect them to beat based on how they performed last year. So I think you lose to Miami. And then you finish off the year against your SEC opponent, as you do every year, Kentucky, who's ranked 24th. They have the transfer quarterback, Devin Leary, from NC State. Their defense is really good. They have a solid running back and solid offensive line. I think Stoops is very well settled into Kentucky. It would take a lot for him to get fired. And I think you take the loss here. Kentucky just overall is a better team. The program is in a better spot than Louisville is. I think Louisville will get better with Jeff Brom and his recruiting and development. I think he'll basically turn them into the Purdue of the ACC just because he has that experience with building a program from nothing. But it's going to take time. I think Louisville is sort of a 5-year project. And, Louisville's a nice town. It's a desirable place for recruits to want to go. They have a football history with Lamar Jackson, and even before that, Johnny Unitas went to the University of Louisville. So I think there's definitely a sell there that recruits would buy. And, with NIL, things change. Boosters can offer money to these recruits now. And I think there is some money to be thrown around by the Louisville alumni. And I know they really care about basketball down there. But football, they expanded their stadium after the Lamar Jackson years. And it's a pretty nice stadium. So I think Louisville can be one of the top programs for football in the ACC. And, that's really a story for all the ACC programs. You look at Miami, you look at NC State, you look at Louisville, you look at Virginia Tech, and you could maybe throw in Georgia Tech there. And these are all programs that have had moments where they were good in the past. And they could be 10-win teams every 2 or 3, maybe even 4 years, and give the ACC a really good name in football. Particularly Miami. Miami could be on the level that Clemson is at, competing for national championships every year. And so that's what the ACC is really looking for in football. But I think Louisville is just as capable of getting there. But yes, I have you finishing, 4-8 in Jeff Brom's first year. With a first year head coach, you have to give them a complete pass for the first year. Nothing should be expected. It's not going to be like Gus Malzahn when he was at Auburn his first year and they went to the national title game. That should not be anyone's expectations, or at least regular expectations of a first-year head coach. That's just not realistic in any case. That was just a lightning in the bottle scenario. But Louisville, you really have to look at year 2 and year 3, especially year 4, to see how the program's trending with Braum. And I would totally expect this to go in the right way, because it's not like you hired someone from the group of 5 to come to Louisville and coach, and you're taking a gamble. You brought in a Power 5 guy who is really passionate about the program because he went to the school and he wants to see it in a really good spot. He wants to see it nationally ranked every year, in the college football playoff polls, competing for ACC championships. And if Louisville could get a guy like Lamar Jackson to come to Louisville, then I just think there's a lot of optimism for that. So anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you to everyone who subscribed. I'll see you in the next video, which will be the University of Miami.
Keeper, Jackson, cuts back, scores! Third straight game, but against a much tougher opponent. The Cardinals offense strikes very quickly.
Some coverages, and look at this, he misreads 16 Pugh, but even after he misreads it on the zone read.
Now receiver is in the backfield. Jackson gets it to him, and he's wide open. A lot of space for Bonifant on the edge into Noles territory. Knocked down inside the 40, and that formation seemed to confuse the Noles again.
The corner.
And Cliff has it again. Cuts it back in the open field, inside the 20. And the Cardinals are rolling, threatening in the red zone again. Jackson keeps it. Gets blocks on the edge. Jackson navigates in for his second touchdown. What a start for the Cardinals.
For Ratcliffe right now, who already is averaging 15 yards himself. See all the white jerseys on Ratcliffe? Now you're leaving the most dangerous.
Crucial possession. Tyler gets a good boot away with the wind at his back. Chases Alexander back deep, but he's got some running room. Look out into the secondary, off and running. And Louisville with a special teams touchdown pads the lead. Jair Alexander, 69 yards. Jackson, look out. Makes a cut. Why not spin in for another touchdown? Unbelievable. He has seized this national stage and made a strong early Heisman statement.
You know how everybody has a kind of a Heisman play that you see the highlights over and over and over again?
They sense it, I think, right there. Look at that.
What an exclamation point for him today. And against the Noles defense, this isn't Syracuse, that's Florida State's defense. He just walked right through.
47 yards scamper. 5 straight 100-yard rushing games. He's a flat.